And before he lands in Austria, Prime Minister will be in Russia. So Ashok Sajjanhar, former Indian ambassador, is now joining us from Brussels to share his perspective on Prime Minister's upcoming visit to Russia. Ambassador, PM Modi and President Putin will meet for the 22nd annual summit, 2.5 years after the 21st summit. But between these two summits, they met in Samarkand, and India participated in the Ukraine Peace Summit in Switzerland recently. When the two leaders meet in Moscow, Biden would also be welcoming at the same time NATO leaders in Washington, D.C. So besides discussing bilateral strategic ties, do you expect PM Modi to play the role of a peacemaker once again, much like what he had done in Samarkand when he famously said, "This is not the era of war"?
Well, thank you very much, Monmon. And you're very right. I think geopolitics, international relations, international issues, regional problems, they are definitely going to be a very important element of discussions between Prime Minister Modi and President Putin. It's going to be bilateral discussions, bilateral relations, of course, but it's not going to be limited to bilateral relations because the two leaders and the two countries, they are very influential, they are very significant powers in the world. And I'm sure that notwithstanding the fact that on the 9th and 10th, there is going to be the NATO summit in Washington, D.C., but the whole world is going to be looking at what is happening in Moscow, because I think the world has also seen that when the two leaders met in Samarkand on the sidelines of the SCO summit in September 22. At that time, Prime Minister Modi had mentioned to President Putin that this is not an era of war and the way forward is through dialogue and diplomacy. And you would remember, Monmon, that in November of that same year, 22, the decision in Bali on the G20, we were able to achieve only by using the formulation that Prime Minister Modi had used in Samarkand. So I'm sure the world is going to be looking at as to what Prime Minister Modi is going to tell Putin, that this war has now gone on for long enough. You know, September 22 was just a few months after February 22. But now we are well into the third year of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So definitely the world is going to look at it, and I'm sure the Prime Minister is also going to be discussing as to the present status and how do we take it forward.
Also, Ambassador, this will be PM Modi's first visit to Russia since 2019. Now, bilaterally, it is a very robust strategic partnership in terms of defense, energy, trade, space, connectivity, etc. But trade deficit is a concern for India, and certain S-400 missile system deliveries have been delayed. Also, India is trying to rescue Indians who have been misled into joining the Russian army and servicing them. Do you expect all these issues to be addressed?
Oh, absolutely. I think they're going to be front and center as far as discussions between Prime Minister Modi and President Putin are concerned. You know, trade definitely, because Indian rupees have been getting accumulated in India, and Russia has always been speaking about whenever meetings have taken place between Mr. Lavrov and Dr. S. Jaishankar as to how do we deal with the payment issue, because I think last year we saw that the bilateral trade had jumped to about $65–70 billion, out of which only about $4 billion or so is the export of India to Russia, and the rest is basically import of energy by India from the Russian Federation. So that is an issue that is going to be definitely front and center. And of course, we've heard in recent days that Russia might be thinking of investing these excess rupees that it has accumulated over the last 2 years in the Indian economy. And I think it's going to be definitely something that is going to be beneficial and profitable as far as Russia is concerned, because Indian stock market is one of the very well performing, if not exactly the best performing stock market, but it has been performing exceedingly well. So that is something definitely that is going to be discussed. And how to, the two countries have decided before the Russia-Ukraine conflict that the bilateral trade should be brought to $30 billion by 2025. But now we see because of the changed circumstances, we have, heavily outstripped that particular target also. Then you mentioned about the S-400. Definitely, I think out of the 5 batteries, 2 batteries have been supplied to India. The rest has been delayed because of Russia's own preoccupation with the Ukraine conflict, and its focus has been much more on meeting its own demands in as far as ammunition and equipment is concerned. So that definitely is also going to be a part of it. Of course, energy as to how to make it, how to stabilize it, how to make it sustainable for the long term. Because I think it is quite clear that before the Russia-Ukraine conflict started, India was buying only 1 to 2% of its oil requirements from Moscow. But now it has, Russia has emerged as the biggest supplier. It has outstripped even Saudi Arabia. It has outstripped Iraq and all the other suppliers from the Middle East to India. So how to make it sustainable, I think that is definitely going to be a part of it. And of course, there are a number of other issues. You would recall that when Prime Minister Modi had visited Vladivostok for the Far East Economic Summit in 2019, there were a number of new issues like the Chennai-Vladivostok's connectivity project,
Yes.
like India's access to the Arctic region where both India and Russia could collaborate. So I'm sure all these issues are also going to be discussed.
Ambassador, Russia, China and North Korea are coming closer and closer and forming an Eastern alliance. Now, India's Ministry of External Affairs said in its curtain raiser briefing that challenges and opportunities in the Indo-Pacific may well be discussed too. So how do you see India navigating this challenge?
I think India will definitely try to tell Russia that whatever is, as the Prime Minister had mentioned, you would recall in the Shangri-La dialogue in 2017, that the Indo-Pacific concept is not directed against anyone. It is definitely not directed against Russia, because, the position it has taken, it seems to be that the Indo-Pacific concept it's a strategic concept. It is directed against China, and since China is a very close partner and friend of Russia, so it has also taken to opposing it. It has also used the same formulation that China uses against, for instance, the Quad, saying that it's an Asian NATO. We have made it very clear that it is not a military alliance, and in any case, India doesn't get into any military alliance, and it has no intention of making it into any sort of a military alliance. So I think definitely it is, India is going to tell Russia that it is not directed against any other country, definitely not against Russia in any way. And the Indo-Pacific is an idea, is a concept where both India and Russia can collaborate. As I mentioned, the Chennai-Vladivostok connectivity project is a very, could be a very important signal as far as the cooperation between India and Russia on the Indo-Pacific is concerned.
Okay.
And definitely what India is looking for is ensuring peace, security and stability in the Indo-Pacific, freedom of navigation, freedom of overflights, and freedom of the global commons in the region.
So a very vibrant development partnership to get stronger. Also, Russia will be hosting the BRICS summit. BRICS, of course, is an expanded grouping now. So will the summit be another opportunity, will this meeting between the two leaders to meet and take forward cooperation on, say, the new development bank, the contingency reserve arrangement, etc., in an expanded format where there are many more players today?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think the importance of BRICS is growing, and we've seen that the expansion last year from 5, we went on to 10 last year, the decision was taken. The sixth member that was decided to be added, Argentina, that decided not to join, but it's become a much more robust organization. And we know that there are about 20, 30 other countries waiting in the wings to become members. So when the BRICS summit takes place in Kazan in Russia in October of this year, I think this is going to be another opportunity for India to connect not only with the host, that is Russia, to take the relationship forward, bilateral relationship forward again, but also with the other partners, the whether it is the leadership of Brazil, of South Africa, of Egypt, of UAE, of Saudi Arabia, all those, they are going to be there. They are all very strong partners of India. So taking the relationship forward with those countries, and of course some of the new countries who will also be inducted. We saw recently in SEO that there was mention made of the Kazakh interest in becoming a member of BRICS. Kazakhstan could very likely become a member. So there'll be other countries also. We know that some countries from Southeast Asia might also be inducted. So definitely this will be an opportunity for India to take forward its partnership and relationship with Russia in Kazan, but also with the other countries.
We'll leave it at that. Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, such a pleasure to have you on DD India.
Thank you very much, Manman. Always a pleasure. Thank you.